Alrighty, welcome one, welcome all, and we're reading some unclassified documents again. And if you guys haven't watched the one where I read the Department of Energy documents when they were testing radiation on people, one of the highlights of that video was we discovered that the United States government was injecting radiation into crazy people's radium into fucking crazy people's heads, probably without their consent. So we've got a doozy that we're reading this time. Welcome to stream 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝖗. So we got a doozy. So have you guys heard about Northwood? Operation Northwood? Probably haven't. So grab some snacks, grab a drink, and let's get into this one. This one it's pretty damn spooky. The levels, the lengths at which our government was going to go to justify war and an invasion of Cuba. So let us fire this up. Right, here we go. And of course, everyone said Alex Jones was full of shit. But this, they said, no, that's just an Alex Jones conspiracy theory. Made my first video in 4 years. Damn, nice. Alright, so let us get to reading, shall we? And this is gonna probably blow your mind. I had heard rumors about this, but here we're reading directly from the unclassified documents. Annex to Appendix to Enclosure A, pretext to justify U.S. military intervention in Cuba. Note, to the course of action which allow our preliminary submissions suitable only for planning purposes. They are arranged neither chronologically nor in ascending order. Together with similar inputs from other agencies, they are intended to provide a point of departure for the development of a single integrated time-phased plan. Such a plan would permit the evaluation of individual projects with the context of cumulative correlated actions designed to lead inexorably to the objective of adequate justification for military intervention in Cuba. And this is where it gets fucking wild if I have these pages correct. Alright, here we go. Move my fat ass. Alrighty. Since it would seem desirable to use legitimate provocation as basis for U.S. military intervention in Cuba, a cover and deception plan to include requisite preliminary actions such as has been developed in response to Task 33 could be executed in initial effort to provoke Cuban relations. Harassment plus deceptive actions to convince the Cubans of imminent invasions would be emphasized. Our military procedure throughout execution of the plan will allow a rapid change from exercise to intervention in Cuba response justifies. A series of well-coordinated incidents will be planned to take place in and around Guantanamo to give genuine appearance of being done by a hostile Cuban forces. Incidents to establish a credible attack, not in chronological order. Start rumors, many. Use clandestine radio. Land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage attack on the base. Let me reread that. Land friendly Cubans in uniform over the fence to stage an attack on the base. So to use Cubans to make it look like the Cubans attacked the base Guantanamo Bay. Capture Cuban friendly saboteurs inside the base. Start riots near the main gate. Emphasis on friendly Cubans. Blow up ammunition inside the base. Start fires. Burn aircraft on base. Sabotage. Lob mortar shells from outside of base into base. Some damage to installation. So this is the CIA and the United States government essentially planning to attack our own forces and blame it on the Cubans. Capture assault teams approaching from the sea of vicinity of Guantanamo Bay. Capture militia group which storms the base. Sabotage ship in harbor. Large fires. 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖑𝖆𝖗. Fuck is 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖊𝖒𝖕. Let me take a quick detour over to Grok and figure out what the fuck is 𝕿𝖊𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖕𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝖒𝑚𝑒𝑚. It's a white crystalline aromatic hydrocarbon with a strong distinctive smell, often associated with mothballs. The chemical formula consisting of two fused benzene rings. It's primarily used in pesticides to repel moths or other insects and industrial applications like dyes, resins, solvents. Naphthalene is volatile, sublimating, turning from solid to gas at room temperature, which is why mothballs slowly disappear. It's toxic in high doses, potentially causing health issues, nausea, headaches. Volatile. So they would use that to stage an attack on Guantanamo Bay. Sink ship near harbor entrance. Conduct funerals for mock victims. So they were gonna sink an American ship that was empty and have fake funerals for the so-called slain sailors. The United States would respond by executing offensive operations to secure water and power supplies, destroying artillery and mortar emplacements which threaten the base. Commence large-scale United States military operations. Remember the main incident could be arranged in several forms. So if you don't know, the Maine was a ship off the coast of Cuba that exploded. To this day, people so the Maine fucking exploded near Cuba. Historically, people think it was sabotage, but in reality, it was probably some idiot smoked in the magazine room of the ship and it fucking exploded, or it just could have been the degradation of munitions that led to the explosion. But regardless, that was a pretext to go to war with Spain and to take over the Philippines. So remember, the main incident could be arranged in several forms. A, we could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba. B, we could blow up a drone, unmanned vessel, anywhere in Cuban waters. We could arrange the cause of such incident in vicinity of Havana or Santiago as particular result of a Cuban attack from the air or sea, or both. The presence of Cuban planes and ships merely investigating the incident of the vessel could be fairly compelling evidence that the ship was taken under attack. The nearness to Havana or Santiago would add credibility, especially to these people that might have heard the blast or seen the fire. The U.S. would follow up with air and sea rescue operations covered by U.S. fighters to evaluate remaining members of non-existent crew. Casualty lists in U.S. papers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. So, again, our government with this is plotting to have fake casualties. This is just absurd. Casualty lists in newspapers would cause helpful wave of national indignation. So they were going to falsify a casualty list, and they were going to put it out there and pass it off as real people being killed. It could develop a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area, in other Florida cities, even in Washington. The terror campaign would be pointed at Cuban refugees seeking haven in the United States. We could sink a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, real or simulated. So, we could foster attempts on lives of Cuban refugees in the United States, even to the extent of wounding in instances to be widely publicized. So our government attacking Cuban refugees to pass it off on the communists. exploding a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots. The arrest of Cuban agents and release of prepared documents substantiating Cuban involvement also would be helpful in projecting the idea of an irresponsible government. So, to set off pipe bombs and falsify and prepare falsified documents. 5. A Cuban based Castro supporter filibuster could be simulated against neighboring Caribbean nation in the vein of the 14th of June invasion of the Dominican Republic. We know that Castro is backing subversive efforts clandestinely against Haiti, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Nicaragua at present, and possible others. These efforts can be magnified and additional ones contrived for exposure. So again, to falsify, as much as we we hate Castro and communists, this is our the idea of falsifying perceived Cuban colonial expanse in Central America or the Caribbean. For example, advantage can be taken of the sensitivity of the Dominican Air Force to intrusions with their national airspace. Cuban B-26 or C-42 or C-46 type aircraft could make a cane-burning raids at night. Soviet bloc incendiaries could be found. This could be coupled with the Cuban messages to the communist underground in the Dominican Republic and Cuban shipments of arms, which would be found or intercepted on the beach. Because who? Yikes. So you can tell that this was canceled because it relies on a whole lot of moving parts. But then again, at the time, I think if we look at the state of America and the height of like Red Scare shit, right? People would have eaten this shit up and bought it wholehandedly. And this kind of like in similar vein to 9/11. We're not gonna say too much of that here. Use of MiG-type aircraft by U.S. pilots could provide additional provocation. Harassment of civil air attacks on surface shipping and destruction of U.S. military drone aircraft by MiG-type planes would be useful as complementary actions. An F-86, I think that's a shooting star, properly painted could convince air passengers that they saw a Cuban MiG. F-86, I think that's a shooting star, if I'm not mistaken. Let's F-86. Oh, a saber. Okay. So this is the plane because it does look like a MiG. In fact, most MiGs and the saber were reverse engineered, if I'm not mistaken, off like German technology they found post World War II. But they could probably freaking cat. Where it would be close enough. Let's go. 11. Alright, sorry about that. I got a cat that likes to screw with me when I start streaming. Alrighty, where were we at? Oh yeah, F-86 Sabre, properly painted, could conceive air passengers that they saw a Cuban MiG, which that is, again, let's just compare that again. So, they want to pass this off as this, which I think would probably be the closest thing. No, there's another one. I think there's another MiG that has. Let me look that up. Because I know there would be one that would pass. Okay, so a MiG-17. So I recant what I said earlier. This MiG-17 would probably, or a MiG-15, because they look similar. Anyway, back to my blade. All right. Document, especially if the pilot or the transport were to announce such a fact. So again, they wouldn't even have to see the plane. The idea is to even have a flight where have someone on a flight where they lie and they say they saw a Cuban MiG. The primary drawback to this suggestion appears to be security risk inherent in obtaining or modifying an aircraft. However, reasonable copies of the MiG could be produced from U.S. sources in 3 months. Hijacking attempts against civil air and surface craft should appear to continue as harassing measures intoned by the government of Cuba. Concurrently, genuine deflections of Cuban civil military air service craft should be encouraged. Genuine deflections. It is possible to create an incident in which all demonstrated convincingly that a Cuban aircraft has attacked and shot down a chartered civil airliner en route from the United States to Jamaica, Guatemala, Panama, or Venezuela. Destruction would be chosen only to cause the flight plan route to cross Cuba. The passengers could be a group of college students off on a holiday, or any grouping of persons with common interests to support chartering a non-scheduled flight. To create an incident. So, essentially, have one of our planes shoot down a fucking civilian aircraft. Blame it. The Cubans. An aircraft at England Air Force Base could be painted and numbered as an exact duplicate for a civil registered aircraft belonging to a CIA proprietary organization in the Miami area. At a designated time, the duplicate would be substituted for the actual civil aircraft and would be loaded with selected passengers, all boarded under carefully prepared aliases. The actual registered aircraft would be converted into a drone. So the old cup game, where you make a copy of the plane, you show footage of people entering the plane, right, and boarding and taking off for their college holiday to Panama, right? So you have footage of the people getting the plane, and then you have the drone take off, right? And then you shoot down the drone and then blame the Cubans. It is scary that we have an intel agency that's supposed to represent, defend, and protect us, and they're talking about false flags and like setting up fake shit to get us involved in a war with Cuba back in the day. Holy shit. This is much crazier. Reading this is much crazier, like physically, than actually hearing someone talk about it. So, if you came across the stream after it's been live and listened this long so far, please leave a like, comment down below. That helps out this channel. But let's keep... B. Takeoff times of the drone aircraft and the actual aircraft will be scheduled to allow rendezvous south of Florida. From the rendezvous point, the passenger carrying Aircraft will descend to minimum altitude and go directly into the auxiliary field at England Air Force Base, where arrangements will have been made to evacuate the passengers and return the aircraft to its original status. The drone aircraft, meanwhile, will still continue to fly the filed flight plan. When over Cuba, the drone will be transmitting on the international distress frequency Mayday. A message stating it is under attack by a Cuban aircraft. The transmission will be interrupted by destruction of the aircraft, which will be triggered by a radio signal. This will allow ICAO radio stations in Western Hemisphere to tell us what has happened to the aircraft instead of the U.S. trying to sell the incident. This is absolutely fucking terrifying. It is possible to create an incident which will make it appear as a communist Cuban. MiGs have destroyed a USAF aircraft over international waters in an unprovoked attack. Approximately 4 or 5 F-101 aircraft will be dispatched in a trail from Homestead Air Force Base, Florida, to the vicinity of Cuba. Their mission will be to reverse course and simulate Fakir aircraft for an air defense exercise in southern Florida. These aircraft would conduct variations of these flights at frequent intervals. So an F-101. Oh, let's F-101. Donald Douglas II. A flight of these would be flying around Florida. Trying dispatch was in Cuba. Their mission, first course, and air defense exercise in southern Florida. These aircraft would conduct variations of these flights at frequent intervals. Crews would be briefed to remain at least 12 miles off the Cuban coast. However, they would be required to carry live ammunition in the event that hostile actions were taken by Cuban MiGs. On one such flight, pre-briefed pilot would fly tail end Charlie at considerable interval between the aircraft. While near the Cuban island, this pilot would broadcast that he had been jumped by MiGs and was going down. No other calls would be made. The pilot would fly directly west, extremely low altitude, and land at a secure airbase at England Auxiliary. The aircraft would be met by the proper people, quickly stored and given a new tail number. The pilot, who had performed the mission under an alias, would resume his prior identity and return to his normal place of business. The pilot and aircraft would have then been disappeared. At precisely the same time that aircraft was presumably shot down, a submarine or small surface craft would distribute F-101 parts, parachute, etc. at approximately 15 to 20 miles off the coast of Cuba and then depart. So, of course, falsifying evidence there to make it look like Cubans shot down an F-101. The pilots returning to the homestead would have a true story so far as they knew. Search ships and aircraft could be dispatched and parts of aircraft. Facts bearing on the problem. Joint Chiefs of Staff previously stated that U.S. unilateral military intervention in Cuba can be undertaken in the event that Cuban regime commits hostile acts against U.S. forces or property, which would serve as an incitement upon the base overt intervention. The need for positive action in the event that current covert affairs to foster internal Cuban rebellion are unsuccessful was indicated. Yeah, those poor fucking bastards got caught on a beat and killed. The Chiefs of Staff on March 7th, 1962 as follows. Intention that a credible internal revolt as impossible of the alignment during the next 9 to 10 months will require a decision by the United States to develop a Cuban provocation as a justification for positive U.S. military action. It is understood that the Department of State also is preparing suggested courses of action to develop justification for U.S. military intervention in Cuba. I think that was just the main. A fully secure basis of fighting from CIA and the CIA State Department. Defense. So I think what had happened is JFK had put a lid on this. Okay. So this was original plan by a joint military group and the CIA, and I think what happened is JFK put a lid on this and shuttered it because he wasn't fucking mentally insane to provoke a war with Cuba, which would provoke a war with Russia, and which would lead to nuclear fucking war. But that is wild how, I had always heard rumors about Operation Northwoods, but now that we can actually, read, these, unclassified documents is wild. So the Black Vault has all kinds of unclassified documents. We might be reading more. It's still pretty scary to read these. I probably shouldn't be reading these, let's be honest. But if you found this interesting, enlightening, terrifying in some way, that was Operation Northwoods. And let me read the Grok. I think Grok has a quick little summary, so we'll read this too. Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation by U.S. Department of Defense in 1962 aimed at justifying military intervention in Cuba. The plan, drafted the Joint Chiefs of Staff, suggested staging terrorist attacks such as hijackings, bombings, and attacks on U.S. assets, and blaming them on Cuban forces to gain public international support of action against Fidel Castro's regime. Specific proposals included faking a Cuban attack on a U.S. airliner, sinking a U.S. ship, we read that, or orchestrating incidents in Guantanamo Bay, we read that, with supposed attacks and shellings. The plan was presented to President Kennedy's administration but was rejected and never implemented. Declassified in 1997, it remains significant example of U.S. government willingness to consider deceptive tactics for geopolitical goals. And if they were willing to do this in 1962, we have to ask the question: what else are they willing to go, and what lengths are they willing to go to change geopolitical favor? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? And if there's an intel agency within our government that has had a history of planning this shit, that is wild. And originally, I hadn't read what was left out was the F-101 thing, where they have a squadron of those F-101s, and one sneaks off from the formation and says he's attacked, right, and went down, and then we place the wreckage and a parachute of the F-101, right? I think that's the one that's probably most plausible. I don't think it would, if they went with that one, I don't think it would result in an exact provocation to war in Cuba, because it's one plane shot down. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't, but that one seems like the most plausible one to me, because it's easier to have a plane break away and then it lands somewhere else. But my issue with that is if one person in the squadron, so-called, attacked by MiGs, and they heard that over the radios, I think they would turn around and investigate, but I don't know. Then again, these were all just plans and false flags to get us into war with Cuba, which probably, let's be fair, would have led to World War III and nuclear Armageddon. But thank God JFK wasn't a mad son of a bitch. So whatever it is, and we could theorize that JFK was assassinated. There's multiple people who wanted him dead. There was the mob. There was communists. There was even elements in the government because he didn't go through with this that would have led to war for Cuba. So there's plenty of angles that you could say why Kennedy was assassinated. And I'll leave that up to you, the viewer, to say or think or to come to your own conclusions. We are here on YouTube, so we kind of have to tiptoe around conspiracies and ideas. But I think he was probably assassinated by someone closer to home. Yeah. And of course, there was the Patsy. You had Jack Rubenstein, who shot Lee Harvey Oswald, and then he died of cancer miraculously in prison. And people theorize that that someone injected him with a carcinogenic substance, and that's what led to his death in prison. Supposedly, if you want to believe that, I'm just presenting the idea. So that was the section of Northwood. Hopefully you found it interesting and as terrifying as I did that our government would go that far. So hopefully, again, you found this interesting. I'll see you next time. I'll probably find some more interesting stuff to read for you guys. And thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. I will see you next time. God bless. Stay happy. Stay healthy. Stay critical of your government because there's no way in hell they have your best interest at heart. Nope. No, never. And stay critical, stay skeptical, question everything. And see you next time. Again, God bless. Stay happy, stay healthy. I'll see you around.